So today we're finally taking a look at the Edgar. This is a ship I haven't really played too much, especially on the channel. The Super Minotaur, the tier 11 version of the UK or British light cruisers. And it's very, very strong, but the reason I haven't played it, because I don't feel all that confident in these cruisers. I don't play them very often. Minotaur has never really been my favorite tier 10. And I've certainly been on the other side of the battleship versus Minotaur engagement quite a bit. So I know that these ships like to explode very quickly. So anytime I'm playing them, I tend to be a little bit too passive. And then I don't get a lot of value out of these ships. They really do need to push up, play aggressive, make use of their smokescreen or the radar to get a lot of value for the team. Whether that be a very aggressive high DPM gun platform that's able to sit and smoke with the help of team spotting, of course. Or you can use islands to push up to, or even open water with your stealth radar on both the Minotaur and the Edgar. Personally, though, I find the radar a little bit too niche or very difficult to make use of in most games. But you can do a lot of good work with it if you're good enough in these ships. The smoke is certainly the more vanilla way to play. A little bit easier as well if you're starting to learn this line. So we've pushed up quite aggressive to this C cap here. My goal, of course, is to help our destroyer win this DD engagement, as well as hopefully disincentivize the enemy team to push this flank. So the curve first getting pushed back towards the boundary line, which is very nice for us. The GNAN is in a kiting position, leaving his smoke now, so our DD should have a decent opportunity here to take an engagement with the enemy destroyer, which is what he's doing, so we need to help him out here. The Edgar, of course, along with Minotaur, having these AP shells, can be a little bit weak against DDs, depending on the ship you're shooting at. You're going to notice a few overpens here and there. But in general, if the DD is broadside enough, you will be doing some pretty good damage. Although, we did get quite a few overpens into that Yamagiri. Some of those Japanese destroyers are just really skinny, so even the short fuse here, armor piercing, doesn't even have the opportunity to arm. But on a lot of other DDs, you're going to do insane damage because the shells will arm, and you do like 5,000 to 6,000 damage every 2.5 seconds. It's insane. That is assuming, though, that you are close enough to hit that reasonably well. You'll notice that in the Humphreys video that I released recently, there was a radar Minotaur that caught me right at the end of that game, and we were playing in an angled position very far away. It made it very difficult for that Minotaur to actually hit us, and when he did, oftentimes the shells would bounce because the angle just wasn't quite there for the full pens. We're definitely going to be making use of this island as well. Notice you don't need to have a smoke screen all the time on these ships to have a very aggressive gun kind of stationary position. So that would make a radar much more useful if you're able to use islands like this. If you know the islands to use on specific maps, and you even get those maps in the first place, the radar can be very, very useful if you're good at making use of those islands. Preussen on the border, it's always a little difficult to get the lead just right once people are there, but we seem to have found it decently well. I am trying to always move in my smoke screen, so always either full reverse or maybe quarter speed forward. And the Preussen actually catches us right as we're switching between full reverse and quarter speed forward, which allows him to get a bit of a beat on us and actually citadels us with that blind fire. Preussen's pretty atrocious dispersion there maybe helped or hindered that. It certainly allows you to saturate a smoke screen a little bit easier. GK also looking for that blind fire into the smoke. It's a good strategy, I ain't gonna lie. I do it quite a bit myself. It's something you will have to be worried about, especially in these UK light cruisers, simply because of their massive citadel, especially at the higher tiers, compared to some of the other smoke cruisers. A lot of the other ones are a little bit smaller targets, certainly have smaller citadels to hit, so they're a little bit easier to use in those smoke screens without getting blind fired quite as easily. But it's okay, we're still able to heal back quite a bit of that smoke screen. Very wary of this Annapolis here, certainly something I've been pretty scared of this entire game. That burst fire plus the radar could definitely kill us very quickly if we make the wrong move. But fortunately, he's, well, forced out by a sub, which kind of sucks for him. But for me, it really helps. Forced out, and then our team is able to take him out. Just the Kurfürst and Preussen left on this flank already. Up to 109,000 damage. It's taken a lot of shell hits to get there. That might be down to some A little bit shaky aim, where I'm not exactly used to these shells at longer ranges. They do take a little bit of time to get used to. But also, you're getting a lot of shatters and bounces in this ship, even at range against some of these battleships. The Kurfürst and Preußen, of course, are more armored than a lot of the battleships at higher tier, thanks to their turtleback and really strong upper belt and deck armor, where if we were firing into, let's say, a Yamato, that upper belt of 32 millimeters would also be giving us a lot of full pens. Where here, if we hit that upper belt, it's just going to shatter or bounce. We just don't have the pen at these ranges. So we're aiming up into the superstructures, of course, focusing on the lower health target. Whatever my team, is focusing on, that's really what I want to be shooting as well. It's a really good tactic you can use to maximize the impact of both you and your teammates. Focus fire is very important. You'll see it a lot in competitive games, but you can do it in random battles. You don't necessarily even have to communicate with your teammates. You just have to notice what your teammates are deciding to shoot, and then shoot that as well. It's not always going to be the right target, because your teammates won't always shoot the correct one, but a lot of times it can even be better than shooting the right target to all focus on one target at a time, even if there is a slightly more optimal one. Kurfürst again on the border here, but we will just barely able to get the beat on him, at least for leading here, and do some good damage in. Edgar is pretty fun to be shooting all these shells all the time. I gotta say, if you haven't played these British light cruisers before, definitely give them a go. They're a very, very unique experience, and they have been pretty strong in the mid-tiers as well. I remember Fiji being a pretty strong point at tier 7, gives you a nice feel for what the line is all about. But a lot of fun, especially as this super ship here gives you just even more DPM and options. We do have better torpedoes here as well, giving us 12-kilometer torps, a little bit more useful in this case. I haven't actually managed to land any this game, but they're great for denying people YOLOing around corners on you. And of course, with your decent concealment, they are an option to stealth torp with. Not a lot of cruisers at tier 10 have that option. There are some, certainly, and they're very, very strong at delaying pushes or stalling out pushes. It's really, really nice for that. The Kremlin pushing in here on low HP. We're going to try and help our Slava to take him out, who otherwise might have struggled. Slava, of course, has a 25mm bow, which is easily overmatched by the Kremlin, and the Slava doesn't exactly do the best against angled ships, as we know. So we take him out, finally getting our first kill, nearly 180k damage, and almost 700 hits already. Pretty ridiculous, honestly. Chung Mu jumps out to finish off the Slava. I'm thinking in my head that I really just need to finish this guy off. We're broadside on to the Bourgogne and the Buffalo, but a turn out should mitigate any Bourgogne shots, and we're just going to hope the Buffalo misses with his AP, which he shot HE to start with, so we're okay. And I probably misused this smoke here at the end. I probably should have recognized that I was the one spotting the Buffalo. This is something that as you play these cruisers more, you'll get the feel of when you can smoke up and still continue to shoot at a target, and when you can't. There's a lot of opportunities that will be missed if you do use your smokes like I just did here. And I'm going to be forced out because the Buffalo is pushing. Even though we do wait in here long enough that our sub is able to get spotting for us, we don't want to get caught in that radar, especially with a Bourgogne charging us down, because I'm sure he is at this point. We're ahead on points and caps. They do need to get in the cap zone or at least kill all of us. So we got to get out of here. We don't want to get caught by that Bourgogne. That's a pretty dangerous target at closer ranges. And here he comes. Unfortunately, the submarine does go down, so we won't actually retain spotting on the Buffalo for very long. Hopefully to kill him. I'm really hoping I can. Maybe I should have used my burst fire there. That's something I haven't really done this game at all yet. But he does manage to live, the Buffalo. And we'll try and get some torps in on this Bourgogne, who I assume is going to be charging the cap here. And then we're stuck in a bit of a tough spot. I don't really advise pushing in front of islands a lot of the time, and this is a really great example why. If I started shooting here, I'm very predictable. There's not really any opportunity to turn away or anything like that. We'll just ground on the island. So I'm trying to stay dark or undetected as long as I can here, at least until we get around this island, allowing us to maneuver a little bit more freely. It should help us dodge the Bourgogne. I'm also aware that the Buffalo could have AP. I'm kind of scouting out that angle to just figure out when I'm safe from the Buffalo to the point where I can actually start shooting this Bourgogne. I'm also thinking about just running away. Sometimes that's a great opportunity to just win games. Run away, accept victory, and that points advantage that your team racked up throughout the game can sometimes just lead to an easy win like that. However, I think with our Alsace going down, the enemy team getting the B cap, Bourgogne being so close to C and 5 minutes remaining, means we do have to open up. So that we do. That Bourgogne is going to angle to us, which really limits our damage potential. And I'm just going to focus on dodging as much as I can. So I preemptively turn, trying to use the almost drifting ability of these higher tier UK cruisers. I guess they all kind of have that ability with their ridiculous acceleration. They almost drift in the water when they're turning. Makes them actually pretty hard to hit. So I'm trying to do that as best I can, trying to time that with the Bourgogne salvos. He could have a reload booster, but I don't actually think he's got one left. But he might, so we do have to be a little bit aware of that. A slow down and turn out manages to avoid that one. Our Alsace manages to just barely spot the Buffalo, getting a salvo away. So if he managed to take him out, we're in pretty good shape here still. And he does. They actually managed to trade. So a 1v1 here left, Bourgogne versus Edgar. But fortunately, we've managed to whittle down the Bourgogne enough that his last salvo there won't even hit us. So we managed to win in that late game scenario with pretty good damage and a couple kills even. This has so far been probably one of my better Edgar games. Still got to get used to the leading of these guns. Certainly not the best aim in this game with the Edgar, but I managed to make it work and had a really good time, actually. I really enjoyed playing this one. As for the build here, I'm very focused on a pretty standard Minotaur Edgar kind of build here. Focusing on concealment, getting extra smokes and heals here, having adrenaline rush, even some extra HP can help us survive a few salvos. The upgrade gunner can be useful, especially if we're pushing up into more aggressive positions. That will allow us to have a better reload as soon as someone is spotted within our detection circle, which here is going to be 9.5 kilometers. Can be very useful. You saw it activate a few times in this game, especially considering our proximity to the cap zone. Certainly anytime you're shooting at a DD well within your detection range, extra DPM is very nice. Consumable enhancements give us a little bit longer hydro, but more importantly the smoke, allowing us to slow down a little bit easier in our smoke screens. Sometimes these ships can drift out of their smokes very easily if you don't time your smoke generator consumable correctly. If you're going full speed and you use it, sometimes they don't slow down in time, and that's kind of awkward. So be careful of that. Incoming fire alert helps us just a little bit longer ranges. Last stand, of course, can be useful if we're getting citadeled and our engine's getting knocked out, or maybe our rudder, something like that. As for the upgrades here, pretty standard as well. Going for DPM, concealment, no propulsion here. Notice that you don't even have the options. We're going for steering gears. That built-in acceleration is just amazing anyway. Aiming system here, giving us a little better dispersion. You can see the dispersion wasn't always perfect anyways, but you spam out so many shells anyways, it shouldn't matter too much. I certainly prefer smoke here over the surveillance radar personally, but I know surveillance radar can be very, very strong as well, so you might want to experiment with that as well. Edgar has been a lot of fun, although a little bit difficult for me to learn, but part of that is actually very fun, learning how to play these ships a little more effectively, playing them a little more aggressive, and having some really good games in them. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.